The story begins early in the morning, 6 a.m. to be exact. The quiet inside the Adler house is suddenly shattered as the police forcefully enter. Eddie Adler, caught off guard, immediately protests. He insists they've made a mistake. "You can't just enter someone's house like this," he says. But the officers are prepared. They show him a search warrant and state firmly, "We're at the right house. Where is your son, Jamie?" At that point, Detective Luke Sanders takes the lead. He heads straight to Jamie's room and wakes the 13-year-old boy with a line no child expects to hear. "Jamie, you're under arrest for murder." This happened at around 5:15 this morning. Luke then asks Jamie if he has any sharp objects or weapons on him that need to be handed over. Jamie, clearly overwhelmed and confused, slowly gets out of bed. And that's when something else becomes noticeable: his bed is wet. A clear sign of panic, fear, or both. Seeing this, Luke softens for a moment and quietly asks, "Should I call your dad?" Eddie comes in and helps Jamie change his bed. Meanwhile, officers begin searching the house thoroughly, collecting anything they consider potential evidence. Then, Officer Miller informs the family of the serious nature of the situation. "Your son is being arrested on suspicion of murder." Jamie is led to the police car, and as he's taken away, he can be heard shouting, "Dad!" At the police station, Jamie is introduced to Sergeant Harris. The sergeant makes it clear, he's not there to make assumptions, but to get answers. "I don't care whether you did it or not," he says. "I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to answer them truthfully." Harris then asks Jamie if he knows his rights, and whether he already has a lawyer or needs one appointed by the station. Jamie, unsure and overwhelmed, asks to call his dad first. Soon after, the officers inform Eddie that Jamie has requested him as his supporting adult, meaning Eddie must be present during all interviews and psychological assessments. A short while later, a child psychologist is brought in to evaluate Jamie's mental and emotional condition. She begins with basic but important questions. "Jamie, do you understand what it means to be arrested?" Jamie responds, "Yes, it means they think I killed someone." She asks, "Why would you need a lawyer?" Jamie answers honestly, "So I don't say something wrong because I'm scared." The psychologist finishes her assessment and reports to the officers that Jamie is mentally stable, despite being clearly traumatized. Back in the holding cell, Jamie gets a moment with his dad. He looks at him and quietly says the one thing he's held on to since it all began. "Dad, I didn't do anything." Back at the station, Jamie gets a moment with his father. "Do you believe me?" Jamie asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Eddie, holding back tears, looks him straight in the eye and says, "Jamie, I trust you more than I trust myself." It's a moment of raw honesty, a father choosing belief over fear. Shortly after, the station assigns a lawyer to Jamie. The lawyer first meets with Eddie and the family to understand Jamie's background and emotional state, and then starts gathering information from the officers in charge of the case. He asks key questions. Was Jamie mistreated in any way? Was he denied food or water? Were proper procedures followed? Once the legal formalities begin, Jamie is officially processed. His photographs are taken, and he's brought in for a full medical examination. DNA samples, fingerprints, and blood tests are all collected. Then, detectives approach Jamie, requesting the password to his phone, a key piece of potential evidence. But before Jamie can answer, his lawyer steps in and firmly declines. "We're not handing over any personal data without a warrant." Tensions rise even further when officers announce they need to conduct a full-body search. They ask Jamie to remove all of his clothes. Eddie, already emotionally wrecked, is furious. He's just a kid. But once again, the lawyer calmly intervenes and explains, "This is part of the legal protocol. As difficult as it is, we can't stop them." Everyone in the room turns away out of respect. But Eddie, Jamie's father, stays, his eyes full of pain as his son is stripped and checked for any signs of abuse, bruising, or defensive wounds. For Eddie, watching his son go through this wasn't just heartbreaking, it was devastating. He wasn't seeing a suspect. He was seeing his child. Once the search is complete, Jamie is given a fresh set of clothes, and his original ones are taken away as potential evidence. Afterward, the lawyer sits Jamie down and begins prepping him for what's coming next. How to respond during interrogation. What to say, and more importantly, what not to say. How to stay calm under pressure. At this point, the case is just beginning. But for Jamie and his father, the nightmare has already started. Before the interrogation begins, Jamie's lawyer pulls him aside for some crucial advice. "Listen carefully, most of the time, just say, 'No comment.' But you can't say it to everything. If a question is simple and clear, something you know for sure, you can answer. But if it's about your opinion, guesses, or things you're unsure of, say no comment. I'll be there, and so will your dad. No one is allowed to pressure you. With that, the interrogation officially begins. The first question comes quickly. Where were you last night? What were you doing? Jamie answers firmly. No comment. The officers nod. They've heard this before. Then, they change tactics. We've received your school report. Academically, you're doing really well. But there's a note here. Your behavior has been a concern for a while now. Can you tell us why that is? Jamie hesitates, then shrugs. I don't know. Next, they start digging into his social circle. Can you give us the names of your friends? Jamie sticks to his instructions. No comment. One officer tries to coax him. You can tell us. Nothing will happen to them. But Jamie pushes back. After what you did to me, I'm not telling you anything. The tone of the questioning then shifts. The officers pull out a phone and show Jamie content from his Instagram account. Specifically, images of adult women that he had interacted with. These were on your profile. Lots of likes. A lot of attention. Do you feel attracted to these types of girls? Jamie, visibly uncomfortable, nods. Yes. They press further. Do you want a girlfriend like that? Jamie quickly replies. No. They're all way older than me. Then, the officers scroll to photos of Jamie's actual friends. Group shots. Selfies. Tags. Comments. This time, Jamie speaks up. He tells them the names of the kids in the pictures and admits that they often hang out, play games, and goof around outside. What do you guys do for fun? One officer asks. We just play games, hang out. Then comes the key question. Were you with them last night? Jamie freezes for a moment. No comment. Finally, the officers reveal what tied Jamie to the crime scene in the first place. We didn't find your clothes at the scene. But we did find something else. Your shoes. Expensive ones. Still covered in blood. And just like that, the weight of the situation comes crashing down again. So here's where things take a darker turn. Jamie had tried to destroy the evidence. He burned his clothes from the night of the incident. But there was one mistake. He couldn't bring himself to burn his expensive sneakers, the ones he loved too much to part with. Those same shoes were found at the crime scene, stained with blood. That's what led police straight to him. Back in the interrogation room, Officer Me shifts the focus and asks Jamie, do you know a girl named Katie? Jamie nods. Yes. Then, almost instinctively, Jamie blurts out a question of his own. Was she murdered? That one sentence turns everything. The officers immediately latch onto it. So you do know what happened last night? Jamie had accidentally given himself away. Now the officers turn to his father, Eddie. Where were you last night? Eddie responds, still shaken. I was on duty all night. I got home just this morning, and then you all showed up. Then comes the question Jamie was dreading. Did you kill Katie? Jamie, nearly breaking, answers. I didn't kill her. Someone else must have done it. You're misunderstanding me. But the police weren't finished. They reveal the cause of death. Katie was stabbed 7 times with a knife. Then, they show Jamie CCTV footage. And what's on the screen is chilling. Jamie is clearly seen following Katie down the street. Why were you following her? They ask. Jamie shakes his head. That's not me. But then they roll the next part of the footage. It shows Katie pushing Jamie first. Jamie snaps. He grabs her, and what follows is too brutal for words. Jamie attacks her, and it ends with her lifeless on the ground. Jamie breaks down in tears. Eddie, in shock, watches the footage silently. The disbelief in his eyes slowly turns into horror. Officer Luke delivers the final blow. Everything is clear now, Jamie. We have solid evidence. You killed her. Do you want to apologize to Katie's mother? But Jamie says nothing. The room falls silent. The interrogation ends. Only Jamie and his father remain. I didn't do this, Dad, Jamie whispers. But Eddie had seen the footage. He had no words, only tears. Still, despite it all, he hugs his son and says through trembling lips, what have you done? Meanwhile, the investigation continues at the school. Officer Leo arrives on campus. Before stepping in, he texts his son, who, as it turns out, also studies at the same school. It's a personal case now. His first stop is with Katie's friends, but the interview doesn't go as planned. They're defensive, sarcastic, and refuse to cooperate. Then it's time for the school assembly. In a corner of the hallway, one of Katie's friends corners one of Jamie's friends, accusing him, violently. You were part of this. You hurt my friend. She starts hitting him. Teachers rush in to break the fight, but the damage is already done. Another boy walks up and mocks Jamie's friend. You got beat up by a girl. Laughter erupts. The bullying spreads like wildfire. Officer Luke watches the scene unfold. And what he sees disturbs him deeply. This school environment isn't just tense, it's toxic. He decides to question the boy who was attacked. His name is Rain. I'm investigating the murder, Luke tells him. How was Jamie acting yesterday? Rain thinks for a moment. He seemed normal, like always. Then Luke leans in and asks his next question. So now the investigation starts tightening its grip. Officer Luke leans in and asks Rain the critical question. Do you know what weapon Jamie used to commit the murder? And that's when something changes. Rain suddenly tenses up. His eyes dart away. Without saying a word, he tries to walk off. But Luke and Misha catch it instantly. His body language said more than any answer could. They knew it. Rain was hiding something. That same day, something unexpected happens. Officer Luke's son, Adam, shows up at the school. He asks his dad for a private word. Adam says, I want to help you with the case. Curious, Luke listens. Adam pulls up Jamie's Instagram profile on his phone. And what he shows next changes everything. There, right in the comments under Jamie's posts, Katie was bullying him, repeatedly. She called him an incel, hurled insults, mocked him, and publicly humiliated him. One of her comments even read, You'll never be in a relationship. I'd never marry someone like you. Dozens of people had liked her comment, which meant it wasn't just Katie, an entire group of students had joined in. It wasn't just online hate. It was digital bullying in full force. Adam looks at his dad and says, I can show you more. There are tons of comments like this. You need to look into it. Officer Luke pauses. Do people ever bully you like this, Adam? Adam shakes his head. No, it's never happened to me. With this new information, Luke rushes back to Misha. He shows her everything. They both come to the same realization. Everything they had assumed about Jamie might be wrong. It wasn't just a crime. It was a chain reaction caused by relentless emotional abuse. Katie and her friends, they were the bullies. Jamie may have just snapped. Even the school principal overhears the conversation. And in that moment, the weight of the truth hits him. He lowers his head and says quietly, I regret not seeing this earlier. Now that the investigation is shifting, Officer Luke and Misha begin looking at things from a whole new angle. They revisit Jamie's school records, this time paying closer attention to his behavioral notes and teacher remarks. While his academics were solid, teachers had reported that Jamie often seemed withdrawn, easily agitated, and isolated. But now, knowing the kind of bullying he faced online, it all makes sense. They start interviewing more students, not just Jamie's friends, but neutral classmates too. One of them says, Yeah, Katie was popular. She could be really mean if she didn't like you. Another adds, Jamie wasn't really friends with anyone. People made fun of him all the time. Katie, she led that. Piece by piece, the narrative begins to change. Back at the station, Jamie is sitting in silence. His father, Eddie, is right beside him, still trying to process everything he's learned. That's when Officer Misha walks in, gently setting a file down on the table. She speaks softly. Jamie, we know you were bullied. We've seen the messages. We've seen the comments. You were hurt, deeply. But we need to understand why it went so far. Jamie finally looks up. His voice is shaking, but steady enough to speak. I didn't plan anything. I wanted her to stop. That's all. But when she pushed me, I don't know what happened. I got angry. I couldn't think. The room falls into silence again. This wasn't the confession of a cold-hearted killer. This was the voice of a child under pressure, pushed beyond his limits. Now the case isn't just about what Jamie did, it's about why he did it. Back at the school, the principal calls for an emergency assembly. He speaks to the entire student body. We failed to notice what was happening right in front of us. Bullying, online and in person, has consequences. Real ones. And we're all responsible. There's a heavy silence among the students. Even Katie's friends look uncomfortable now. Meanwhile, Officer Luke looks at Adam and says, You did the right thing, son. Adam nods quietly. For now, Jamie remains in custody. But the tone of the investigation has changed. It's no longer just about proving guilt. It's about understanding the full story behind the tragedy. Weeks pass. The trial of Jamie Adler, just 13 years old, begins in a courtroom packed with media, school officials, and grieving family members. At the center of it all is Jamie, nervous, small, dressed in formal clothes that seem too big for him. He's no longer just a suspect. He's now the accused in a high-profile murder case. His lawyer presents the case carefully. They don't deny what happened, but they show everything. The bullying, the verbal abuse, the online humiliation, and Jamie's mental state before the incident. Experts are brought in. A child psychologist explains how sustained emotional abuse can lead to impulsive, uncontrollable behavior, especially in a developing brain. The defense makes one thing clear. Jamie wasn't a killer with a plan. He was a child pushed to the edge, unnoticed, unsupported, and emotionally cornered. The prosecution, however, focuses on the severity of the act. They show the CCTV footage again. They talk about Katie's family, the grief, the irreversible loss. In the courtroom, Jamie never once tries to justify it. When he's asked if he regrets what happened, he quietly says, "I wish I had walked away." Tears fill Eddie's eyes. His son, his little boy, is facing the weight of an adult world far too soon. After days of arguments, testimonies, and back-and-forth deliberations, the court reaches a verdict. The judge looks Jamie in the eyes. "You are found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. But considering your age, your mental state, and the evidence of long-term bullying, this court is recommending rehabilitation, not prison." Jamie is sentenced to juvenile detention for 3 years, with mandatory therapy and educational support. He will be evaluated regularly, and his behavior will determine his release. It's not freedom, but it's a second chance. Months later, a new rulebook is introduced in Jamie's school: strict anti-bullying protocols, social media monitoring, and required counseling sessions. The principal steps down, taking responsibility for what he failed to prevent. Katie's family opens a foundation in her name, but they also join efforts in spreading awareness about digital bullying and mental health. Eddie visits Jamie every week. In one of their sessions, Jamie says, "Dad, I miss you." Eddie replies, holding his hand, "I'm not going anywhere." Adam, Luke's son, becomes somewhat of a quiet activist at school. He helps others speak up about online abuse. His courage was the turning point in the case. And Luke, he sits quietly in his office sometimes, wondering how many other Jamies are out there, hiding pain behind a screen, waiting to be seen before it's too late. And lastly, this wasn't just Jamie's story. It was a mirror to the silence we ignore, the hurt we scroll past, and the moments we fail to ask, "Are you okay?"